Hello, it's Thursday and you're watching another episode of Retail Media Thursdays. There's been a lot of talk in our industry about the expansion of retail media beyond retail and into other verticals. So today I'm really excited to be joined by Paul Wright from Uber, who's going to be giving us some insights into his experiences firsthand. Paul, welcome to Retail Media Thursdays.
Nice to meet you.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Paul, and I basically have been brought in to build Uber's ad business in the UK. I've been there since, December last year, so not very long.
Very good. We'll get on to some of your journey there, but before that, which pub are we in and why?
We're in the Crown and Sceptre, which is on Great Digital Street, but crossing into Foley Street. And this is the first pub I ever had a media drink in, my first day in media. And I was working for a company called Sky Channel then, which turned into B Sky B. And they had an office. The first office was just across the road from here. So the pubs around here are still the same and pretty much the same in every context, but some of the offices have changed, obviously.
Probably the same crowd in here on a Thursday night
probably.
as well.
Probably.
What's been your peak of the week, personally or professionally?
Peak of the week. We have so many peaks of the week at the moment because we're building a business, so there's always good news, I guess. New campaigns, new advertisers working with us. So yeah, there's a lot of those at the moment, and we're just prepping for a few more new hires as well, which have just been confirmed. So there's a lot of peaks. I think that's good.
That's great. You went down the professional route. A few people have gone down the personal route with that question.
I'm sure. It's fine. I mean, personally, I've just come back from holiday, so I'm quite nice and relaxed, so that's good.
It's always a good feeling. I'm about to go on mine,
yes.
So looking forward to that. Okay, let's get into the actual questions around retail media. So I'm a big fan of Uber, like the ride after a night out in London and the eats usually the day after when I'm feeding that hangover.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are familiar with Uber as a business, but probably not so much on the media and the data side. Do you want to tell everyone a bit more about your media and data offerings?
Sure. So we're a commerce media platform, I think, rather than a pure retail media platform. So on the Eat side of the business, we have sponsored ads, billboards, those types of things, sponsored products, which allow our restaurant partners and increasingly our convenience partners to promote their services to our customers. 2/3 of people who come onto Uber Eats do not know what they're going to order when they get onto the platform. So obviously it's a very important way of getting that selection in front of them as they're making that decision. That's a more traditional retail media. More recently, since about March, April this year, we've started pushing out ads within our rides business. And as you probably know, we have a lot of people in rides in London and various other things. And the way that works is predominantly we don't interrupt the ride experience, but we just place ads within the rider app as you are booking an app. There's 3 stages to it. Essentially, when you're booking, so when you're waiting for a driver to confirm, there's an ad. That then drops down to a slightly smaller ad when you're waiting for your car to pick you up, and then you have a constant ad that's there when you go back to the map if you want to see how you're getting to your destination. The interesting thing with this product is that the advertiser owns the whole ride. There is no other advertiser in that format, which I think is important. It's obviously not in UGC content, it's all above the fold, it's all viewable, and with the sort of trend towards attention, it's a very strong attention metric. We're seeing on average, I think, on the ads that run a minimum of 90 seconds engagement time. Most of the ads we're running in the UK are actually higher than that. And that sort of takes us into more of a brand consideration area than perhaps a performance area where we have on Eats. And obviously some people are linking the two and trying to drive awareness on one side and then drive performance on the other side in the Eats platform.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've actually started noticing them more and more since I knew I was doing this interview. So it's definitely working from a brand awareness point of view. We've obviously met at the IAB UK Retail Media Group, and I think Uber gets classified as a retail media network quite often. What's your take on that? Where do you see yourselves fitting in this network? You mentioned just then that it's kind of commerce media. Like, how does it work?
I think retail media. I think it's the historical thing is obviously retail media has taken people who've got transactional data, Amazon, whatever, and said, "Hey, great," then you're adding media to it. And obviously that's a natural place to put us. But because we have these other areas, I think we're slightly broader. But the fundamentals are still there. We're using our first-party data from our consumers and using that to target advertising to those consumers. So I don't think we're sort of a slightly broader concept. And I guess obviously the other thing with us is that we're doing two things. We're obviously getting products to people, things to people. That's one experience. But we're also taking them to places. So when you think about a lot of retail media is predominantly driven, the intent is around a purchase. The intent with us, particularly on the Wright School, could be around an experience. You're going to a bar, you're going to a concert, you're going to a holiday, whatever. So there's a different context from a consumer point of view, which I think is why it's very powerful, because it sort of takes us into a slightly different consumer mindset than perhaps others would have.
So we've seen the expansion of ad formats in kind of traditional retail media. Does Uber have big plans to go beyond kind of your search ads, your display ads within the app?
Yes, we do.
Off-site?
Yeah, well, let's take what on-site first and foremost, because obviously we're a new business. We're still, probably less than 2 years old really in terms of how we've operated. So I think the first thing is formats within our ecosystem. So we've announced in June that we're going to start putting video ads into the rides experience and into the Eats experience as well in some areas. But we as Uber are always very concerned and focused on consumer experience. We're going to make sure the consumer experience is right. We're not going to put ads that get in the way of that consumer experience. So that's the first step, is adding in new formats. We do think, particularly in rides where you've got an average Uber ride is 22 to 25 minutes. The idea of linking into a video format makes a lot of sense, because people could watch a music video or they can watch an episode of a pilot episode or something. So that's one area. So that's the first thing. And obviously the same in the Eats side, where we'll add new formats there as well. We're also testing a variety of other things, particularly in the US, but as in time we'll see where they go. But the first one is doing tablets. So in the West Coast we've got a test running at the moment with doing tablets, where essentially we're placing tablets on the back of and viewing into where the rider sits. You have a tablet. That tablet has your map on it. So when you get into your Uber, you can see the map of where you're going and how long it's going to take you. Then there are some options there to engage potentially with content, and we've done some examples there. So that's one area we're looking at. The next area is obviously what we do around car tops. So we're doing a lot of car tops activity in the US. A lot of that's driven through programmatic. And that can link into what we do in journey ads as well. So that's another area of growth for us. So our main focus at the moment is just to look at all the different surfaces and opportunities we have across all our key markets. Whether we get to the next stage in terms of sharing data off-site, not to be decided yet.
Yeah. It's, I remember years ago working for an agency, and we were doing car top advertising on traditional black cabs in London. It's gone full circle.
It has, but the data is obviously a lot more interesting, and because you can use geodata, you can actually target within areas, so specifically, so all Ubers in certain parts of Manhattan or whatever else happens to be makes sense.
Yeah, a lot smarter than it. So one of the things that we're hearing a lot from companies like Amazon is that they're a media-first business. Would Uber consider itself a media-first business with all of these new formats?
Well, having worked at Amazon, I'm not quite sure where Amazon are coming from on that, because I wouldn't say that they were necessarily a media-first business either, actually. No, I think our first and primary concern is to provide the opportunity to get customers from A to B, or to get them things that they need to wherever they happen to be. And I think that's our focus. Whether that means we're a media business or not, I don't know. But we will always focus on the customers for the customer and giving the customer service that they need, and then advertising is part of that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All about the customer experience.
Yes, absolutely.
So you were brought in to set up Uber's media business a year ago, and I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there at the moment kind of being brought into other industries to set up ads businesses. Where do you even begin to start?
Well, I think it's interesting because I've worked at several businesses where advertising is not the primary revenue stream. It's very important as a starting point that you have very senior buy-in to the strategy, because I've seen other places where the buy-in hasn't been there, or it's been a bit tokenistic, and that hasn't really worked. At Uber, we're very committed to it. We've made public statements about it. Dara, our CEO, has talked about it a lot. So that's a great starting point, is having that commitment to it and the investment that goes with it. So that's stage one. Stage two for me or any of my colleagues across the globe is build a team quickly and explain the proposition, and we've been able to do that. There's a lot of interest in working for us, which is good, and that's been, that was my core focus in Q1, and then just taking it out to clients and explaining to clients, because the proposition is similar to many other propositions in some places, but particularly in the rides, it's very different to what they're used to, and people want to digest and understand quite what it's going to do and how it's going to work, and obviously get case studies. But yeah, we've been solely focused on build the team, drive the revenue, demonstrate success, and build from there. And also recognise we are coming into a market where there are a lot of other competitors all the time. Even when I was agency side back in a previous life, I always remember how many different competitors were coming in to talk to us on a regular basis. So we've got to shout out, stand out where we can. So we've developed strategies around that, and working with agencies and with clients and with all the types of people. So far, touch wood, so good, right? I mean, we've got a long way to go. There's a lot of things we have in the pipeline that we're going to have to make us, even more credible as a business. I think we're credible anyway, but more things we've got to do, measurements, all those types of things that come with it. But very focused, get on with it, make sure you've got senior buy-in, and demonstrate success quickly, and then I think it goes from there.
Are there any prerequisites that you would, if somebody was offered a role to set up an ads business in a random vertical, you'd say don't touch that with a 10-foot pole? Well, what would you be looking for?
I think the first thing you have to have is scale. You have to have some degree of scale, because as we always know in the digital business, scale matters, and it attracts budgets more quickly from advertisers. So that's one thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that some very niche products couldn't work, but obviously they work on a different model, which is a very high yield model. So scale's important. I think it's always helpful, and we find this, that if people understand your product as a user or consumer, that makes it a lot easier. Because you're sitting there going, I don't generally have to go in and explain, as we started this conversation, what Uber does, which is hugely helpful, because then it's just a question of how advertising then fits into that experience rather than explaining what you do. And having worked in ad tech in some areas before, where you have to try and explain how your pipes work with someone else's pipes, it's a lot more complex. So that's been helpful as well. So having that, so I think scale, ease of use and ease of understanding. And also I think being very clear about what you can do and what you can't do. I think sometimes I've seen some businesses try and overreach themselves and try and appease too much, and sometimes that can be painful. And you can say, you promised a client you're going to do something that probably is going to be really bad for the customer experience, or isn't the right thing for the consumer generally. So we have to think about those things. But yeah, scale and audience and an understanding of your products is a great starting point.
Any other learnings along the way? What do you wish you knew 12 months ago that you know now?
Well, I mean, I think coming into a business like Uber, we have the ads team is very young. So we have a lot of education to do across the business, of course, of what advertising is, because what makes Uber great is the operational skills we have in getting people to get to places and getting things to people. So that's not necessarily a deep understanding of advertising within that, because that doesn't have to be there. That's not what's needed. So that's been one of the things. But no, I think, what have I learned along the way? Just I think with all this, it's just persistence, resilience. You have to keep pushing through. There is no such thing as an easy ride in this, and particularly with the number of competitors you're up against.
Yeah.
You just have to just keep being out there and keep talking to people.
Yeah, exciting times for you.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, it's fabulous. No, I'm not complaining at all.
So, my favourite part of Retail Media Thursdays, not so much for the guests.
Random questions you're going to come up with.
The quick fire round.
Yes.
Are you ready for this?
Yes, I am ready. I'm ready.
Okay, you're going to need to get your phone out.
Oh, God. This is a bad thing. Right, I have my phone.
Open your Uber app. I really hope you've got it.
That
would be embarrassing.
That would be embarrassing, yes, true. You want to know my score, don't you?
Yeah, what's your rating,
the
Paul? That's the number one question, what everybody wants to know.
4.7.
Oh, you're lower than me.
Yeah,
Now, my next one, which you probably know this, but most people don't. How many number 1-star ratings have you had? Can you see this?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can find it on the app.
Yeah.
I think mine's 5.
Oh, mine's 4.
So I don't know how I got those. I don't even remember getting those. But you know.
I definitely fell asleep in the back of the taxi, and I can pinpoint every single 1-star experience.
Okay, fair enough.
Feel very sorry for the guy. Okay, your Uber Eats order. What's your go-to? You said 2/3 of people don't actually have one. I know what I'm going to order every single time.
Well, yeah, but a lot of people. Yeah, I think that's true. There's a lot of people. I mean, from a sort of vox pop talking to people, a lot of people don't actually know. They want an order, but they don't quite know what it is.
What's yours?
Probably Honest Burgers.
That's a good choice. What'd you go for?
Whatever, I can't remember what they're called now. They have various. There's a smash burger, or there's another one. There's 2 or 3 I like. Very good,
very good. So you're in the back of an Uber. Small talk or silence?
Depends, actually. I don't mind. I mean, it depends on what I'm doing. Happy to chat with them. It just depends. I think I try and get a sense of the vibe of whether I want to talk and whether they want to talk, and then we go from there.
I'm silence. Please don't speak to me kind of person. I hate talking to anyone. Okay, and then I Googled on my way here, what are the most common questions that get asked to Uber drivers? I'm going to have to read this one because I cannot do it without actually looking at it. So, one of the most common questions is, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
That's a crazy question. What a crazy question. I'll do the 1 horse-sized duck.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I think that would be a lot easier.
A lot easier. Yeah, one sounds better than 100. I mean,
who even thinks to ask that though during their Uber ride?
That's a great obvious. That's not an obvious conversation in Uber, I don't think. But hey, whatever.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate talking to you, and it was great to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.